Lesson 22 is about equal group stories with fractions. Our first problem says 2/3 of the 12 musicians played guitars. How many of the musicians played guitars? Now if we're looking at this problem and we want to go ahead and solve it, we've got to think about how many total musicians we have. We have 12 total musicians. Okay? We could go ahead and we could draw out a picture. Okay? We're going to have 3 musicians here, pictured by just little circles. Okay? We'll have 4 in this row, then we'll have 4 in the next row, and then we'll have 4 in the next row. That gives us a total of 12 musicians. It says 2 out of 3, or 2/3 of the 12 musicians played guitars. How many of the musicians played guitars? So let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and circle in 2 out of every 3. Now let's work down the columns. If we circle in 2 out of every 3, the red means they play guitar. There's 2 out of 3. Here's 2 out of 3 going down. There's 2 more out of 3 going down. And there's 2 more out of 3 going down. If we count up our reds, we can see we have 8. So that means 8 musicians played guitar. And we have our final answer. This is one way that we can go about doing this problem, drawing pictures and circling and coloring them in. Let's go ahead and move on to our next example. How much money is 3/5 of $3? Now in this example, we're going to do it a little differently. We're going to make a diagram box. And in the diagram box, we're going to have a total of $3. Now our diagram box is going to go below our total amount. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our diagram box and we're going to divide it into about 5 equal parts. We know that it has to be 5 equal parts because we have 3/5. 5 tells us the whole. So we've got 1, 2, 3. We make one more line, and we've got 5. I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bit neater on the bottom because we want these to be showing equal parts. If it's not exact, that's okay because we're just drawing it out by hand. So how much money is 3/5 of $3? If we wanted to know how much 3/5 would be, 3/5 would be our first one, our second one, and our third one. If we put all those together, that's equal to 3/5. All we need to know is how much money will go into each one of these 5 diagram boxes in order to add up to a total of $3. The way we figure that out is with division. So what we're going to do is we're going to say $3, and we're going to divide it by 5. Decimal point always comes straight up when we are taking a decimal number and dividing it by a whole number. 5 never goes into 3. 5 goes into 30 6 times. We get 30 with 0 left over. We have a 0 as a placeholder, and we're all done. So that means 60 cents will go into each box. We'll put 0.60 each time. Whoops, 0.60. 0.60 all the way down. 60 cents all the way down. Because we know 60 cents times 5 must be equal to $3. So how much money is 3/5 of $3? Well, remember we had the 3 right here, the top 3. That's 1, 2, 3 out of a grand total of 5. So we can figure out our answer by multiplying 60 cents times 3. So if we multiply 60 cents times 3, 60 cents times 3, we know that 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 6 is 18. We're going to carry that 1. 3 times 0 is 0 plus 1 gives us 1. We have to move the decimal point over 1 2 times. We move over 1 2 times. So we have $1.80. That's going to be how much money is 3/5 of $3. And we've got our final answer. Make sure you've got this diagram box and all this information copied down into your notes. Let's move on to our next slide. What percent of a whole circle is 1/5 of a circle? So, what percent of a whole circle is 1/5 of a whole circle? If we wanted to look at that, we'll use our diagram box. So a whole circle is always going to be 100%. That's the whole thing. Now again, we're going to make a diagram box below our total, and we're going to divide it into 5 equal parts. Now you can see I have 6. I'm just going to go ahead and erase the bottom one. If you make too much, that's why we use pencil in here. We can go ahead and erase. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different spots. we need 1/5 of that. So 1/5 will just be our top one. Okay, this would be 1 out of 5 diagram, 1 out of 5 pieces of our diagram box. And now we need to figure out 100% divided by 5. So 100 divided by 5. We could put a percent sign here and we can bring it straight up. 100%. So 5 is going to go into 10 2 times. We get 10 with 0 left over. We have 20%. So 20% will go into each one of our diagram boxes. You can see 1/5 must be 20% because we only need to count this one. So our answer, what percent of a whole circle is 1/5 of a circle? It must be 20%. And we're all done with this question. Let's go ahead and move on to the next example. Make sure you've got this in your notes. Our next examples will be in our lesson practice, page 115 to 116. Okay, make sure you got your notes completed, and I'll see you during our next class.